Today's program is brought to us by the Seattle Sports Commission. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Ralph Morton, the executive director. The commission coordinates the Clipper race stop in Seattle, from championships to Olympic trials to major international competitions. The Sports Commission brings the biggest and best sporting events to our region. As we grow into major international destination, the commission works to provide world-class sporting events. They're the highest quality entertainment and inspire the next generation of our local athletes. At the same time, it is a huge bolster to our economy and gives us an opportunity to stitch together as a community. The fun part about meeting Ralph was I was out in the lobby with Don Kraft, Eric Slaybaugh, and Hamilton McCullough, and it was the first time I met him, and they just oozed about him. So apparently, his 12 years at the commission has been impressive. He came to us from New Orleans. He's a Florida Gator, I think. And I'm going to let him take it away and introduce you to the panel. But we're thrilled to have them. It's exciting not only to have them here today, but all the work that went into getting the Clipper race to stop here. I believe Ralph is behind that. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Sue. I checked with the Clipper race staff. They said your houseboat cannot enter the race to Panama City. They didn't think it was safe. So we're going to move on. I would like to begin, make sure I acknowledge with the Clipper race, its CEO, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday to William Ward over here. I love that you can get a round of applause for just getting older. So anyway, how many of you had a bucket list? You know, do you even know where that bucket is? You know, and you look at the dreams and the thoughts of what you want to accomplish. I know mine has this thing, when my kids graduate from college in 20 years, I'm going to get to that process. So the speakers that you're going to hear about today are about this passion in pursuing dreams. I know some of you might think about this maybe a midlife crisis, and some of you may be looking forward to your second midlife crisis. But when you talk about this race, it's all about passion. If you see a picture of a boat, that's just a boat, but it's really the crews that get on this boat and pursue a dream. None of them are professional sailors. They're people like you who've gone out and pursued one of the things in their bucket list. And there's really one reason they've done this. There's a gentleman named Sir Robin Knox-Johnston who in the late 1960s went out and said, I'm going to sail around the world. He entered a race and he was the only one to finish. And really, his dream now inspires these other people to pursue that dream. So as you listen to this, as you see them, and as we look forward to having them hopefully back again with their race, think about your dreams, whether it's sailing around the world or something else. Think about your passion, and hopefully this will inspire you just a little bit. And if you can get down there tomorrow to see them off, come meet some of the crew. They're departing around 2 o'clock tomorrow. They start having celebrations at 1. So I'd like to introduce our panel to the stage, and thank you for having us here. Come on up.
Thank you for inviting us here today. Thank you very much indeed. It's great to share this with you and see such a wonderful room that I understand is filled every Wednesday like this. Having visited a number of Rotary clubs, this would be their annual convention in some parts of the world. So you do a great job, and it's great to be here. I'll give a short introduction. My name's Jonathan Levy. I'm really the storyteller. These guys are the people who've been there and done it. Next to me here is Sir Robin Knox-Johnston, the co-founder and chairman of the Clipper race. Martin Clough is one of our skippers of the boat Unicef and has a lifetime in sailing and sail training and development. And he's joined by David Cusworkth, who has sailed around the world as a crew member and now enthuses other people to follow in his footsteps and become crew members aboard the race. I think as a way to get started, the race has just come from Qingdao in China. For those of you who don't know, Qingdao is where the sailing events of the Olympics of 2008 that were centered in Beijing were held. And we've been part of their story to develop that and a legacy that's followed. So that's a race that is in statute miles around 6,000 miles all the way across the North Pacific to here in Seattle. a race that took the best part of 4 weeks through challenging conditions. And these people sign up to do this, to be crew members, because they want to experience something extraordinary and do something extraordinary. We had a filmmaker aboard the Visit Seattle boat. I think this film is a little over 1.5 minutes, but it captures something of that experience. So we'll just watch it for a moment. Experience of Visit Seattle. So it's no cruise, but it is a tremendous achievement. And the theme for today is about how this is a life-changing experience for the crews and the wide range of backgrounds they come from. The race started as a concept 20 years ago when Sir Robin Knox-Johnston became the first person to sail solo non-stop around the world back in 1968-69. And he'll be able to tell you a bit more about why he came up with this concept. But since then, over 4,000 people, many of them who'd never sailed before, have experienced this race around the world 10 times. We're in our 10th edition of this biennial event, which we're really pleased to be here in Seattle for the first time. It's a big race, international crews. We now have 44 different nationalities take part. Throughout the course of the year-long race, 700 crew will participate. About half the crew on each boat, of which there are 12 identical ones, will sail around the world. The rest of the places are for people who join for one or more legs. And they are an inspirational crew. This is a story about people, the journey they take, and the chapter we are in their journey in life. Here's an example. Yuko Kikuchi is from Seattle. She took on two tough legs, the Southern Ocean and the Pacific. She's a Japanese-American, and she felt so proud of coming into her home city. She was in tears when she was met by the media, but a huge achievement. Here, this man, Martin Frey, from another part of the States, but over the last 11 years, he's been climbing the 7 highest summits and the 7 seas, and he completed that challenge aboard the Visit Seattle boat, crossing the Pacific. A huge achievement. Here's the route, the big route around the world. At 40,000 nautical miles, it is the world's longest ocean race. And with the size of crew, it is indeed the biggest. And the only one that opens up that opportunity for amateur sailors. Over half have never sailed before. A third are women. So the race started in London back at the end of August last year. Since then, it's been to Brazil, to Rio, to Cape Town in South Africa, around the coast of Australia. It participated in the grueling Sydney-Hobart race at Christmas. It then went up to Vietnam and Da Nang, a port city there that's growing rapidly, up into China, Qingdao. Now it's here. And from here, tomorrow, it will head down towards the Panama Canal, and then race back up in the Atlantic to New York. From there, it will go to Derry Londonderry in Northern Ireland, another one of our partners over the last 3 races as part of their development as UK City of Culture, and now as a legacy for their huge transformation. And then it'll go to Holland before returning to London at the end of July. So it's a big journey. 12 teams supported by a range of destinations and brands around the world who want to not only support this incredible adventure, but spread their message at the same time. So we have destinations with vision, we have brands who believe in themselves, companies with confidence, organizations with purpose, people who want to be associated with this incredible challenge because it chimes with their brand values. Visit Seattle, you already know about, and they've taken that name around the world. It's not just about the great time we've had here in Seattle and what we brought to the city, but the way that name has gone around the world. Tourism's been promoted, and the beginning of opening up trade opportunities and a whole range of other things is really very powerful. Great Britain, for example, we work with the British Prime Minister's office in carrying their message around the world, and that opens up political connections as well around the world as we go. Da Nang, Vietnam, they've got a boat and a destination stopover for the first time, a very ambitious city in the world. So we create this huge network as we go around, Qingdao that I mentioned a few moments ago. So it is very diverse. We still have brands like Garmin, who will be well known here, and financial exchange company who's joined for the first time. And they all get behind their teams. But we wanted to concentrate really a little more today on the whole human side of this. And part of that is demonstrated by our link with Unicef. This is our 10th anniversary race, our 10th race over 20 years. And Unicef is our official charity. We have all our teams raising money for them. We're aiming to raise $500,000 throughout the course of the race. And also, we have gifted a boat to help promote UNICEF as part of that whole charitable focus. And so, therefore, we can talk a little to Martin in a minute about what that means. Social responsibility, another one of our projects, has got down into the whole development of youth. Because this isn't just about sailing skills. When you take part in this race, it changes you as a person. Life-changing may be a cliche, but it certainly isn't in this race. We've had groups of young people from the UK, from Northern Ireland, from South Africa, which David will be able to tell us a little bit more about in a minute. And that's had a huge impact on their lives. Also, as we go around the world, these stories are told by the world's media. So we now reach over 1 billion an audience of 1 billion people uniquely around the world who share in that whole story. So here's our panel and a chance to chat a little and to open up questions to the floor. So Sir Robin, first of all, it's 47 years ago this week was the anniversary of you returning to the UK after that incredible journey around the world. Can you just say a little bit about that experience and maybe how that shaped your view going forward of opening up that experience to other people?
Well, in 1966-67, a fellow Brit called Francis Chichester sailed around the world with one stop. And that obviously left one thing left to be done. This was sailing. And I thought the French were going to do it, and if the French did it first, we'd never hear the last of it. So I decided I'd go and try and do it. So I wrote to 52 companies for sponsorship, and they all said no. I eventually managed to wangle £5 voucher out of Cadbury's and 120 cans of beer out of Tenners, which was much more useful. And so I set off. 9 of us set off, and no one else finished, so I sort of won by default. But it was a different world. I mean, there were no satellites in those days, well, none available apart from, well, barely any satellites. There was no GPS. So when people said to me, you know, how did you manage without GPS? I said, well, I didn't know about it. No one did. So if you don't know about it, you can manage without it. And if all I had was a single sideband radio that broke down after 2 months, so that, thereafter I went up to the pilot vessel in Melbourne and reported in, and they said fine. Well, they didn't actually, basically told me to clear off. But and after New Zealand, no one heard of me for 4.5 months because I had no way of communicating. And people used to come up and say, weren't you worried when you were missing? I said, when I wasn't, I knew where I was. You know, so. I think one of the funniest stories, the lovely Welsh missions to seaman padre in Falmouth, a good friend of mine, who was actually grandfather of one of my skippers on this race. On Easter Saturday, I ran into a load of ships, and the only means I had of communication was a signal lamp. And having been a communications officer on a frigate, I'm quite good at it. Anyway, I called up 18 ships, and eventually, about 7:20 on Easter Saturday evening, I got a message. The ship answered me, Mobile Acme, and I said, please report me to Lloyd's. He said, ETA, 2 weeks, Roger, BV, bon voyage. Fabulous. The receiver was still working, so next morning I tuned in the receiver to the BBC, nothing. So I thought, well, hasn't reported me, or someone else has finished, or, you know, there's just no interest. In fact, at 20 to 9 the previous night, my brother picked up the phone to be told I'd been sighted after 4.5 months. And the next morning, David Roberts goes into a pulpit to give a sermon, and he gets up with his lovely Welsh accent and says, have you heard the news? Robin's been sighted. Most appropriate on the day of the resurrection. So that was what it was all about. 312 days at sea, and someone said, was it difficult? Well, if it had been easy, someone else would have done it. The whole point in life, you take on the tough things, because then you get some satisfaction. Do the easy things, where's your satisfaction?
And in opening that up to other people back now in 1996, 20 years ago, what was the inspiration for that, and how did you believe people would benefit from that experience?
2 things go into that. I was climbing in Greenland with a friend of mine, and he was telling me what it cost to climb Mount Everest. And I thought, what's the sailing equivalent? Circumnavigation. Wonder how much it would cost for me to lay that on for people. And I worked it out. It's about half the cost of climbing Mount Everest. So William and I put an advert in the papers, and we got 8,000 answers. Well, when you get that number of answers, you better go ahead with the idea, because if you abandon it, someone else is going to pick it up. So we went ahead with it. And the whole concept was to let ordinary people do something extraordinary in their lives. Now, how many of us want, at the age of 90, hopefully we'll get there, look in the mirror and say, I wish I'd done that. It's much better to say, I'm glad I did that. But so many of us keep putting it off, don't we? We're not prepared to take the risk. We say, oh, but you know, I could do it, but. If you actually make your mind up, the buts disappear. Yes, you've got other people to consider, of course. Family, children, all that sort of thing. Although once children have left the nest, I think one is entitled to be a little bit more independent. But in fact, it's a bloody good idea if you are. You get away from them, you know. You're on your own. You never quite are, but never mind. That's personal experience. But, you know, go and do it. And what I thought was there must be so many people out there who would love to do something special, like sail around the world. So if we supply the boat and a qualified skipper and the route, food, some clothing and this sort of thing, let's see how many people want to do it. Well, the result was we had plenty of people wanted to do it. Started off being mainly British. Now about half are British. Second largest group are Australians. Third largest group Americans. And it just goes down, French about 18 and that, so on. Chinese are big, they're 30. We've done a lot to develop sailing in China. Over 50 people now we've trained for them. So it's developed. We started with 8 much smaller boats, we've got 12 much bigger boats. The numbers of people doing each race have doubled. And we look back, as Jonathan mentioned, over 4,000 people have done this race now. That's 4,000 people. And I'm not interested in turning out a brilliant racing person. For me, the highest compliment I can ever give anyone is that they're a good seaman. I can turn a seaman into a racer. I can't always turn a racer into a seaman. And what's the essence of seamanship? Safety. And boy, do we hammer that. That's enough for me.
So just translating that then into, you were involved in a lot of youth development, Sir Robin, and you've seen what the race has done. How would you encapsulate the impact the race has on those individuals who experience it?
You take someone and put them in an alien environment, they've got to rise above it. They've got to gather themselves and make themselves. That's what we do in the military, and it's what I used to do when I was president of the Sail Training Association in Britain and Europe, which was youth development. And we'd take these kids, we'd shove them on a boat for 2 weeks, we'd put them at the mast along the yard arms. They're frightened. Of course they're frightened. We were the first time we did it. We know it's safe, they don't. So they're overcoming a fear. And when they come back on the deck, you walk past and say, well done, Dad. That's personal. To them, whoa, yes, I've done that. It's probably the first time anyone said that to them. They've been told they're a failure. And that's the beginning of turning them and developing their character and giving them confidence. When we used to come back after 2 weeks, they're up on the yard arms dancing, terrifying their mums who are standing to pick them up at the end of it all. We've got them tethered on. I mean, they're not going to fall off, but, well, they'll fall a little way, but not very far. But you just see the change in them, the confidence. And exactly the same thing happens with Clipper. Lowest age is 18, the upper age, where it sort of goes up with me. I can hardly tell someone younger than me they're too old, could I? So, but we've got this wonderful cross-section of people, but you notice in them at the finish, standing there, that little bit taller, proud, done something special, but it also gives them a greater confidence in life. Quite noticeable. We see it time after time.
Thank you. David, you did the... Thank you, Sir Robin. David, I think it's some 15 years since you did the race as a crew member, but since you've been closely involved with a lot of the youth programs and other programs we've developed to make the race accessible and to help people. What are some of the highlights for you? What are the programs that stand out for you, and what are the difference you've seen happen?
Thank you, Jonathan. You see really, really remarkable changes, especially in the younger crew on the race. Seeing, as Sir Robin said, the confidence, the aspirations. The younger crew realise the world is much bigger than they ever thought, and they can do a lot more than they were ever told they could do. The Sapinda Rainbow programme has been running now for 2 editions of the race, and this is where we go over to South Africa. There's a huge selection process, working with agencies around South Africa, and our target here is to work with some of the most disadvantaged, hard to reach young South Africans. And because of all the things Sir Robin was talking about with personal growth and personal change, the challenge that we give to these young people is not just for them to come and have a great time, sail across the oceans of the world, but to take that lesson home and become a community leader. And some just amazing people and amazing stories. Charlotte, who's just finished the Pacific leg. She was orphaned at 13, built her own house, lives alone, has no electricity, no running water. The closest toilet is in her neighbour's house. She'd never been on an aeroplane, never seen the sea, and has just raced across the North Pacific. And from the person I first met 2 years ago interviewing her and going through the selection process, she was always quite a strong character, as you would be, having been through the life challenges she's been through. But I last saw her 2 days ago on stage singing in front of a group of business people. So she's definitely walking taller and singing louder now. And she's just one example of many. But she'll be going home very, very soon, and we'll be spreading that story and spreading that message and inspiring other young people in her township and showing them that they can do a lot more with their lives. And that's really why we're involved in these youth programs and CSR programs. It's about bringing change, and the sea is a great teacher for doing that.
Thanks, David. Martin, you've got a long experience with working with young people, but now as the skipper of the Unicef Yacht, what does taking the name of a global children's charity like that mean to you? What does it, what does that mean when you're on the ocean associated with a charity like that?
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, it is an honour and a real privilege to be invited back to Clipper to skip a Unicef Clipper. I've done the race before in 2000. What it does for me, it brings together a career working in sail training, initially with very, very challenged children, and then later with very challenging young people. In the former, that was 37 years ago, taking part in a round-the-world expedition called Operation Drake. It was an expedition to bring young people together from the US, from Canada, from New Zealand, from Australia and the UK, and we were called Young Explorers. And a sail training vessel circumnavigated the world to commemorate Drake's voyage of discovery. And en route around the world, we were challenged as young explorers to go out into the communities of third world countries we visited and do relief projects and aid projects there. From a young chappie like me from the north of England, from a hill farm, it was quite distressing, quite challenging to see starvation at first hand with young children, to see disease, malaria, and things like that. So coming back from that expedition in 1980, I then retrained and ran away from the aerospace industry, actually, and I was doing a project with Boeing. Retrained in sail training, got my skipper's ticket, and then my first command was in the city of Liverpool, a sail training catch there with the Ocean Youth Trust, and our challenge there was to take challenging youth out from the inner cities of the north of England and try and make them better people. The biggest example of that, I would say, was at the time in Belfast, where we'll be challenged with 6 youngsters from one side of the fence and 6 youngsters from the other side of the fence during the Troubles. And our role as facilitators there were to build bridges. In both instances, what is really evident is that if people do care and go the extra layer and go the extra step with youth, with youngsters, they will rise to it. And if you can educate one youngster, they will then go back and educate 20, 30 more.
Thank you, Martin. So, you would never dream this huge spectrum of activities with sailing, but it's a huge, huge catalyst for so many things. We'd now like to open up to questions from the floor. So if there are any questions for any of our panel, we'd love to take them.
All right. Question?
Yeah, it's obvious that the crews that were in town have been doing a lot of things. I heard Children's Hospital, and our skipper yesterday was throwing out the first pitch. What are some of the things that they've done while they've been here in the city?
They've been to the Children's Hospital. Skipper's thrown the first pitch. Many, many examples. You know, the crew have been really excited to go out to see the Boeing site. We've got a crew member on one of the boats who's an ex-Boeing executive, so the crew from his particular yacht had a really great behind-the-scenes trip there. We've had trips to the Gates Foundation. I think one of the really key things about the Clipper race is how we engage with the community. You know, this is not just an event that comes into town and you see these amazing yachts that our CEO William Ward and Sir Robin have put together, and skippers like Clough lead around the world. You see these amazing vessels, but what we want to do is engage with the community and actually let you experience them. You know, we had 100 people on Sunday, local sailors and non-sailors we took out and gave some sailing experience to. We've been giving presentations around the city, probably over 1,000 people, some of whom had never sailed before, now know more about the Clipper race. Boat tours every day. Even yesterday, you know, it's amazing to me that the crews are 2 days away from racing to Panama, and they've got provisioning and preparation, and they're putting their boats back together, and it's a key time, 2 days before they're due to race. They willingly and happily give up their afternoon to show people around the boat, because actually the thing they like doing, probably second behind sailing, is telling people about sailing and sharing their experiences of the 80-foot waves and the 90-mile-an-hour winds and the sea monsters and what heroes they were and how they single-handedly kept it together. So sharing with the communities, I think, is a huge part of what we do, and the crew very, very willingly do that. So we sent the crew out to the community, and all of you guys have been involved in helping the crew find out more about Seattle and what you have to offer. And hopefully at the same time we've reciprocated and shown your community what we have to offer. Yeah,
Great, we have another question here in front. Jan Curley.
Thank you. I've so enjoyed seeing your boats right down in front of my condo at Pike Place Market. It's just been a thrill. And I had a question. You don't have to sail the whole race, or do you? Do you sign up for the full race or portions?
No, you don't have to sail the whole race. About typically just over 100 are doing the full circumnavigation. But you know, modern life, people have jobs and things. They can't get away for 10 and a half months. Their jobs do get in the way of sailing. And so people say, well, I'd like to go and do 1 leg or 2 legs or 3 legs or whatever. And so we facilitate that so they can sign up. But they all have to do the full training. And that's 4 weeks. It's deliberately tough. You know, it's train hard, sail easy. And that's the way we do it, because 40% of the people who come to us have never been on a boat before. Now, I have to say they're the easiest to train, because they've got no nasty habits that I've got to get rid of.
Thank you. Please thank our panel.
Opening day of boating season marks for me the beginning of Duck Dodge, a weekly sailboat race on Lake Union. Every Tuesday evening from May through August, the lake fills with eclectic energy and lots of sails. The Clipper race likely doesn't have toga theme nights, so Duck Dodge targets a different sort of sailor. One evening, watching from my roof, the air was completely still, not at all promising for racers. Suddenly, the wind kicked in full, and the lake burst to life, instantly exposing a spectrum of skills. On one end, instinct and artistry. On the other, a frenetic and expensive frenzy. There are sailboat owners, and there are sailors, as there are people who live and those who purr with life. To become the latter requires diligence and a feisty appetite. See you next week.